Thank you, Chair of the Committee. Senator Murkomen.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First, I want to thank the committee for accepting and proposing me to second this very important bill on behalf of my colleagues in the committee. Number two is to congratulate the chair, who in his own right is a coffee farmer, a former cabinet secretary or a cabinet minister in charge of cooperatives, and who is a passionate believer in improving the welfare of the common farmer. Madam Speaker, we are so privileged to have Senator Ndwiga to have been a chair of Committee of Agriculture and Livestock at a time that we are still undergoing transition when it comes to moving from national or former centralized system of government to what we have now, which is a devolved system of government. We all know in this House, especially those of us who came here in 2013, that we did not achieve the kind of transition which was expected to be done under the Constitution. Senator Wetangula will tell you that the regime that is existing at the moment is such that you have functions being devolved to counties, but you have a legal framework that keeps those functions at the center and the resources at the center. So that what you have in this country, in the name of the Agriculture and Food Authority, is a form of complete centralization. I can understand the wisdom that was in the ministry and the government at the time, the coalition government at the time, when AFA was established, the Agriculture, Food and Authority was established to minimize cost in terms of reducing the number of parastatals. But the losses outweigh the benefits. AFA has become one of the biggest causes and an institution that has aided the complete failure in the agriculture sector. As we speak today, the agriculture sector is ailing from tea, which we rescued with having a bill here that was consultative through a formation of a committee, to even if you go to coconut, if you go to all these other crops, including now coffee and cereals. Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, your previous, the Deputy Speaker of this House knows very well, because she was the chair with Senator Wetangula on matters of maize, cereals. And they formed a ad hoc committee that looked into that issue. And one of the critical response from that committee is that there is no attention of government when it comes to the cereal sector, and particularly maize for that, in that regard. Why? Because AFA was lumped together with all many different parastatals. And then you have one Director General. And the people who are in the know, who have a conversation with the management of AFA, will tell you that you bring someone who is in charge of one crop or who understands only one crop, then the horticulture people are suffering, the ones of coffee, the ones of tea, the ones of coconut, the ones of cotton. The specialization that was there since independence, there was wisdom why our founding fathers and founding governments thought that every crop needed its unique management structure. And so I am glad that, as I said, the cabinet secretary then of cooperatives, someone who had served before and who was there at a very critical time in this country of reform in the government of the third president of the republic, was our chair, because this his wisdom has helped in informing where we should go as a country. And that's why we are now dismembering this AFA, AFA, to ensure that the institutions that existed before can now go back and revive the various crops that we have in this country. The most important thing about this bill is about what we would call separation of powers, functions, and responsibilities. Like the mover of the bill as, and the chair of this committee has rightly captured, we want to separate the person who is doing the regulating the sector, from the one who is the farmer, and the one who is marketing, and the one who is milling. And the uptake of this bill is to ensure that the millers, who are actually the marketers and the controllers of the market, not just locally but internationally, are separated, Madam Speaker, from, separated, the functions are separated. The marketing should be different, and the milling should be different, and the farmer be different. And then, Madam Chair, give an opportunity now to a more independent institution in the Capital Markets Authority to now look and oversight all the commodities exchange related to coffee matters. This is, you may look, it may seem to be a small, an easy exercise. Even this house at the moment may be having very few members who are here at this very important debate. But I can tell you, Madam Speaker, for people who understand the importance of cash crops, coffee, tea, this bill is a very, very serious bill. In fact, what we are doing here is one of the most honorable things we can do, Madam Chair, from here. Because what we are doing, we are dismantling cartels. We are dismantling cartels. We are giving power back to the farmer. We are debating in this house and saying we want the farmer to have, Madam Speaker, the control of where their crops go, and to have a better price, and to have money in their pockets. If you look at the debate that we have in this country at the moment, everybody is now talking about the economy from different perspectives. Our friends in ODM are talking about top-down approach. Theirs is about, we build big industries, build big people, build Kenya, buy Kenya. Although they are the ones who are telling us, Madam Chair, I don't want to annoy you, but they're the ones who are telling us we should not buy anything from Brookside, Safaricom, all these other things. But be it as it may, maybe now they have come back to light and they're saying we build the big companies and it will trickle down. But we have an antithesis to that. Those of us who believe that we need to do bottom-up approach, which President Biden now talks about bottom-up, middle-wide approach, where we want to ensure that that small-scale farmer, however few they are, or notwithstanding the size of their farms, even if you have 1 acre, 2 acres, 3 acres of coffee, can benefit through a cooperative society that comes together to bring together all these farmers, and then they can be able to mill themselves. They have a right to mill their coffee, and now get whoever wants to buy their coffee at a price they want themselves. And if we are going to have a commodity exchange for that coffee, let it be regulated by the Capital Markets Authority like other products are being regulated in the market. That is reform. That is transformation. That is change. That is where we want to go as a country. And if we have to go there, we need to dismantle the cartels. I have an interest in this sector, Madam Chair, and I have a small, I want to be also, I have been taking lessons from...
Senator Murkomen, today you seem to be not coordinated because you keep referring to Madam Chair, Madam Chair.
It should be the Madam Speaker.
Yes, then be consistent.
I recognize your powers and authority as a full speaker seated with all the powers and authorities to make the ruling. It should be Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have been taking lessons from Senator Ndwiga. What happens in coffee? What can be done? What can I do? Can I do small farming? Can I do some coffee? And while I was taking these lessons, I have also relatives who are neighbors and friends of Senator Ndwiga. I have a very good family member there. And I went up to the farm. And he was telling me that, yes, you can plant here specialty coffee. You can do all you want. But because of the cartels, once all this done, you deliver your coffee to a certain miller. That miller, even if you went and negotiated a good market in New York or California or any part of this country, and you got even somebody who was going to buy your coffee, and you are still going to deliver this coffee through these millers, what happens is that they can even hide your coffee. It can even be exchanged. It can even be mixed with a low quality coffee, so that to just make sure that you become subservient, you become a servant, and you are told there's nothing you can do. We are the ones who have a control of the market out there. If this bill should give us and give farmers an opportunity now, and the amendment is coming inside this bill, that we will have Capital Markets Authority controlling the part of the marketing, regulating the marketing, and we have the farmer doing what he has to do, and everybody gets their license for what they have to do. To do the farming, to do the pulping. For those who are going to do the milling, they'll get the necessary regulation and licensing, so that then it becomes very clear in this country who does what. The other thing that this bill does is that it makes clear the functions of national government and the functions of county government. The Constitution expects that the national government will do policy and get, assist farmers, get international markets, benefit from economies of scale by bringing together all farmers across the country. And you will see that in the bill itself, we have provided for in section 6. First, let's start with the functions of the establishment of the coffee board, back to having a proper coffee board which is independent from these other agriculture boards, like the case is now in AFA. If you look at the composition of that board, you will see that it brings together the farmers, the representation of county governments, and we've put it clear there that 2 persons from opposite gender representing plantation coffee growers who are nominated by Council of Governors, and we have also 2 persons representing Association of Farmers Coffee nominated by the Cabinet Secretary, so that you have people who are representing farmers sitting there in the plantation of coffee growers, that is big farmers, and the small farmers are all seated in the board. If you look at the functions of the board, it is clear that the board has a responsibility, Madam Chair, Speaker, to provide permits and licenses as provided for in the schedule of the bill, to register coffee dealers. Meaning that, Madam Chair, if we find that you are unscrupulous business person dealing in coffee and fleecing farmers and using the opportunity you have to create, a group of cartels, we register you or deregister you with an authority of a board that has the powers and responsibilities to do as the same. It also has the responsibility to conduct local and international coffee market intelligence and promotional activities, so that they can be able to help the farmers, including marketing Kenya abroad and Kenyan coffee abroad. It has also responsibility to put in place a framework of capacity building and interaction of various players in the coffee industry, because it has a bigger view, an overview of what's happening in the country. If you now contrast that, you will find in section, Madam Chair, 23, the establishment of the functions of a county government when it comes to the coffee sector. And key, Madam Chair, here is they maintain an up-to-date register of coffee growers, nursery operators, because these are important. By the way, one of the reasons, let me just digress a little bit. I came to learn, albeit late, that one of the reasons why most of the young people in this country are not embracing agriculture, why agriculture doesn't sound sexy, is how it was presented. Agriculture for a long period of time was the mzee's farm, the patriarch of the family is owning large pieces of land, and then the farming itself is done in a very casual manner. I sometimes pity ourselves, because even the young people of 40s and below who have bought farms, they are doing what they call telephone farming. Somebody's Nairobi and he's sending fertilizer, telling someone, okay, put the fertilizer there. You don't know if anybody's taking care of your crop or even livestock. People are, farming, which is not considered to be financially viable. But farming can be very financially viable, Madam Speaker, if you take the right steps. You have the right seeds. You have the right marketing strategy. You have the right people who are the scientists who are looking after the disease. They are the ones who are nutrients for your crops. And Madam Chair, it is the duty of county government now to go to the ground level. I was trying small farming the other day, Madam Chair, and for the first time I realized I have to look for professionals. I'm asking around, who is a graduate from, or who has a diploma from a Curry Training College or somewhere, who has the capacity to do it. Because sometimes if you just go and do things haphazardly, and people must be willing to spend the resources. I know, Madam Chair, that the challenge that the farmers have at the moment is that for them to follow this procedure, this proper procedure of having good seeds, good animal crop protection, is because it's costly. But the government can give an incentive to proper people who are doing proper farming by giving them easy loans in the structure and form of the CDM. Again, that is a very important principle that is being perpetuated by the side of political side I believe in the bottom-up approach, Madam Speaker, looking for the resources that will facilitate farmers to improve their crops and improve their livestock. And in this case, it is the coffee crops, Madam Chair. So this will be the function of the county government. The problem with our governors and the problem with how Kenyans understood devolution is we understood devolution to be big structures, tall buildings, big offices. Because there are two reasons. One, people appreciate that the governor has done so well because he has a White House for an office. Fantastic. He has a big office that he spent 500 million to build that office. But Madam Chair, what if that 500 million was given to farmers to improve their crop production, to improve their coffee? It is not, for sure that government would be appreciated because the farmers are more, they will be voted back. And the legacy is long term because you improve the living standards of the people. They are able to take their children to school. They improve their lives. These are the things that we want county government to concentrate on. To concentrate on making sure that they give out the necessary certificates and licenses, enforce national legislation. When you say that you must not farm near a river, you enforce that national legislation. If we say that you must protect water source to facilitate irrigation, implement that national legislation. That is the role of the county government. The county government also has a duty to inspect nurseries, pulping stations, warehouses, millers, and roasters located within their respective counties. The same way, Madam Chair, we passed a law here that ensures that you can only sell potatoes packaged in 50 kilos. And my people have benefited in my county. My county assembly also passed a similar law in Elgeyo Marakwet County. And now farmers in Leland area who produce potatoes and Chepkorio area in Keyo South who produce potatoes are able to sell their potatoes in the necessary, packaging that will ensure that they get good prices. This is exactly what county governments are supposed to do. Monitor and report incidents of pests and diseases outbreaks to the board so that the board can now take action. This I felt we should emphasize, Madam Chair, because there must be a dichotomy between what the board will do at the national level, which is a function of national government, and what the county government is going to do. And we must support them, the county governments. And those of you who are going to be governors, you do everything possible to ensure that you deal with that issue. Madam Chair, something else I want to emphasize in this bill is the part of the research. The bill brings back and recognizes the authority and the power of the Coffee Research Institute and the importance of knowledge and education in ensuring that we have proper coffee produce in our country. This institute That's the responsibility of advising national and county government on matters research. It has the responsibility of disseminating information and information sharing locally and internationally, and improves production, sharing of technology, and so forth, Madam Chair. This again is a very important institution, staffed with very qualified individuals in the areas of coffee, and who will ensure that our country gets the necessary information. The issue that we have been suffering in this country with is the problem of not applying education. Research is done by various universities and institutions, but it's not properly applied. We want to ensure that through this bill, there is an interlink between the Coffee Research Institute and the county governments, and that the county governments, again, having representation in this board, will also utilize the resource that come from this institution and make coffee production a very lucrative business. Madam Chair, I just want to conclude by saying we have struggled as a committee. Even though there is a committee that was established by the President, gazetted, we have had a problem with the current Cabinet Secretary. And I think the conduct of Cabinet Secretary Munya is unbecoming, because he has become like a direct agent of cartels, and he is operating against the same government he is serving. The Cabinet establishes a committee that will make sure that we take coffee products to commodity exchange. He himself takes matters into his own hands and gazettes a law that does not even function, that does not operate even under his ministry, so that the Capital Markets Authority do not come in and regulate coffee as commodity being traded in the I have here, Madam Chair, and I will table letters of letters being exchanged between the Attorney General and CS Munya, trying to, in fact, the Attorney General stopped short of telling him that as a lawyer you should understand what the law is all about. And Madam Chair, this is what blinds this nation, because of the small and short-term interests that individuals have in this country. And I pity this, because CS Munya comes from a region that he should be protecting the farmers. He comes from Mount Kenya region, where most of the farmers are crying about coffee prices. People are cutting their coffees and establishing bricks and mortar, building flats, Madam Chair. Yet coffee can be more lucrative, can employ more people in this country than flats which are being built. Yet the Cabinet Secretary is falling into the hands of cartels. And the danger with this behavior, Madam Chair, is that it usually happens just before election. And your guess is as good as mine. Because there are incentives that come with cartels when they know that election is around the corner, is they know that politicians and aspirants want money. And Madam Chair, we want to tell the Cabinet Secretary to respect the Cabinet itself and to respect the President, who established a committee that wanted transparency, accountability. And as a committee, we will not get tired raising these issues, because the exchanges that we have here, Madam Chair, cannot go unchallenged. And I want this committee, I want to request this House today, let's debate this bill robustly today, and possibly, Madam Chair, if it's possible, we dispense with second reading tomorrow, so that next week we are able to come back to do the amendments in the committee stage and pass this bill, goes to National Assembly, and we sort this issue, Madam Chair, because we want to go home, back to our counties after this term. If we will have done nothing else, Madam Chair, for 5 years, we will have liberated our farmers. If we can only do what we are doing insofar as coffee and tea is concerned. Madam Chair, I beg to second.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the coffee bill, Senate Bills number 22 of 2020, be now read a second time. Senator Wetangula Moses Masika, Senator for Bungoma County.
Pardon? Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill is very dear to my heart. I grew up, Madam Speaker, as a little boy. Every Friday afternoon and Saturday morning, we were picking coffee during harvest season. And after picking coffee, we'll put on an ox cart and travel for 3, 4, 5 kilometers to deliver to the Coffee Society factory. And when the payments came, Madam Speaker, those days, it was an early Christmas for the families. On such a day, we would eat chicken, we would eat chapati, we'll even eat rice, which was only reserved for Christmas. These were the days, Madam Speaker, when the country and the government valued the farmer. I want, as I support this bill, Madam Speaker, to salute my brother, the distinguished senator for Embu. It is not just now that he has shown his soft heart for farmers. When we were in government together and we were in cabinet together, he continuously distinguished himself as a protector of farmers, spoke for farmers, acted for farmers, and unlike many ministers who sat in their comfort zones in Nairobi, I used to meet Peter Ndwiga in the countryside wearing gumboots and walking in farms to see what the farmers were doing. He visited Bungoma. He helped us to set up nurseries, and his message of hope to the farmer was something to behold. Madam Speaker, today, when you look at the state of coffee farming in Kenya, it's a pale shadow of what it used to be. My account of Bungoma, Madam Speaker, in 1959, before independence, lend money to Her Majesty's government from proceeds of coffee, Bungoma Coffee Farmers Union. Today, Madam Speaker, if you come to Bungoma, the county assembly that our county assembly uses in Bungoma was constructed from the proceeds of coffee by the late Pascal Nabwana in the early 60s. It's as good today as it was then. Imagine, with the madness of building brick and mortar everywhere, Bungoma has not found it necessary to construct another county assembly, because what was constructed from proceeds of coffee in the early 60s is still as good as any new structure today. That is what coffee has done, Madam Speaker. People went to school from proceeds of coffee. Coffee factories used to give bursaries to students. Then, Madam Speaker, the disease came in of thieves. You will now go to a coffee factory, Madam Speaker, as the mover was saying, a clerk in the coffee factory who has no single plant of coffee at the time of payment is the highest paid farmer, because he's offloading kilos and kilos from every farmer. A farmer delivering 50 kilos, he offloads 5 for himself and credits himself until at the end of the day, he's the #1 farmer with no single coffee plant. Our institutions of governance, Madam Speaker, have to look not only at white-collar criminals in big government offices, but even persons in positions of responsibility that impoverish the farmer down there. Madam Speaker, today when you have coffee factory elections, the persons who are coming to vote are now not the real farmers. Hired goons and criminals are brought there with fake registration numbers and go there and vote in one of their own to continue fleecing the farmer. Madam Speaker, this bill seeks to change the management of our coffee industry. And I want to encourage the mover, my brother Ndwiga, that there are a few things that he may wish at committee stage to look at so that we make it even better. Agriculture is devolved, and being a devolved function, I agree and allowed the sharing of responsibilities between the national government and the county governments. As we do so, Madam Speaker, accountability and accountability and accountability of those manning this important industry must be emphasized. Madam Speaker, out there, you know, when the new constitution came in and we brought in AFA bill, that was the beginning of the destruction of farming in Kenya. We took all crop legislations, lumped them under one composite act of parliament. The sugar industry went, pyrethrum went, rice farming was compromised, maize farming was compromised, coffee farming was killed, and today we are now on a reconstruction path. And this reconstruction, Madam Speaker, must be people-centered, because the farmer is the most important person in any matrix about farming. We are not going to have, Madam Speaker, the bad old days where people sitting in KPCU earning billions of shillings and the farmer toiling and moiling from morning to evening looks like a beggar. We want to put authority back to the farmer and money in the pockets of farmers. Madam Speaker, as we do so, I want the mover of the bill to consider several things that I want to point out. Number one, Madam Speaker, the clause 4. With the devolution, I don't know why we want to keep the headquarters of this coffee board in Nairobi. Nairobi doesn't grow any coffee. Nairobi doesn't get involved in any coffee growing, and this is how the cartels in Nairobi then micromanage the farming in the country. I don't mind, Madam Speaker, the coffee board to be domiciled in any of the major coffee growing areas, whether it is Embu, whether it is Meru, whether it is Trans Nzoia, Bungoma, wherever, so that people feel that actually this is a devolved function. And Kisii, I agree with you, Professor, because Kisii is a major coffee growing area. We need to decentralize things from Nairobi and take to the real producers of these crops. I don't mind, Madam Speaker, my brother Ndwiga hosting this coffee board even in Embu, where he comes from. But to keep everything in Nairobi, farmers who want to come and get services are brutalized by sometimes not very friendly people. They lose their money. They have to spend a lot of money in expensive hotels. So I want you to consider that, Madam Speaker. Clause 5, 1D. I don't understand why the committee wants investment of board money to be referred to the Cabinet Secretary for Finance for approval. I thought the board, being a body corporate, when they want to invest money, their line ministry is agriculture. And it is not a matter of taxation, it's not a matter of something that requires the treasurer. The treasurer, as it is, Madam Speaker, is so tied down battling how to deal with our runaway public debt that dealing with the coffee money will be one of their least interests. So I would want, if you don't trust the board to handle their finances and you need ministerial approval, then give it to the mother ministry. And I'm sure the Minister for Agriculture going in the future may not be as unreasonable as the one we are experiencing today. So we'll have things done properly. Madam Speaker, when you go to clause 7, persons who serve on the board. I'm always very uncomfortable, Senator Murkomen, about just saying a person is eligible because he holds a degree from a university recognized in Kenya. You know, when we are dealing with coffee, we can't just, suppose somebody turns up with a degree in Bible and you want him to sit on the coffee board. Somebody turns up, Mr. Speaker, I saw that there's a university that is offering a degree in witchcraft. Somebody turns up with a degree in witchcraft from a university recognized in Kenya. And you say, this person is now fit to sit on the coffee board of Kenya. You know, we need to be, to be more definitive, Mr. Speaker, in what degree we are talking about. Because if we are talking of coffee, it must be a degree relevant to crops, more particularly the crop in issue. So let's not be vague and just say a degree from a university recognized in Kenya. And we have very weird public officers in this country, Madam Speaker. A minister will just appoint somebody with a bachelor's in witchcraft and say he has a degree recognized in Kenya. Let him sit on the coffee board. So we need, Madam Speaker, to look at that and see if we can change. Madam Speaker, I also want to encourage that, you know, we are in a free market economy. We should not overregulate. We should bring sanity to the industry, but we should not overregulate, because when you overregulate, you also undermine the efficacy of the farmer in producing, and then there will be too many roadblocks, and those licenses are normally toll stations, and the farmers suffer in the process. For example, in clause 9, you know, is it clause 9? No, clause 10, I agree that the board must perform these functions of regulating and promoting development of the industry, registering coffee dealers, and so on. In fact, Madam Speaker, the regulation and the registration and the policing must be the dealers. And you heard what the mover said, that people who just sit at the top and decide this is grade A, this is grade B, this is grade C, grade D, swindle the farmer and then export it as one grade and take the money. Those are the people that you need to focus on. Get what Safaricom calls mulika mwizi and focus on them so that you reduce the nefarious activities that hurt the farmer. Madam Speaker, there is a clause that I want the mover to really look at. The first one in this is the one in clause 23. You know, when you say, and I think it's just the language, when you say each county government shall, it means all the 47 counties are obligated. But not all the 47 counties grow coffee. Because when you say each county government shall implement the national government policy relating to coffee, it means you are going to force Wajir to implement a coffee issue. You are going to force Mandera. I think you need to find a language, like say each county government, where applicable or where coffee is grown, is obligated to enforce the provisions of this, so that we don't now start having the madness we had with the fish ponds. Even with the study showing that in Wajir, Garissa, evaporation is at over 85%. We saw government taking money to construct fish ponds. In Wajir, you put fingerlings, within 2 weeks, the entire water has been evaporated, money has been stolen, and in the books of government, fish ponds have been constructed all over the country. So we must have where it's applicable, so that it is not everywhere. Madam Speaker, we also want, I want to support the need for county governments to engage in quality control, which is very good. And I've seen a provision where you say when farmers seek licenses, they should not pay any license fees. That is very important, although we need to provide a penalty for an errant county government official who levies fees from a farmer when you have said no levies should be applied to the farmer. More importantly, Madam Speaker, is clause 26. And Peter, this is very critical. You say a person or entity shall not carry out the business of a coffee grower, nursery operator, or cooperative society, coffee association, or coffee estate unless such a person is registered by the respective county government in which the business is to be undertaken. I would want you to pluck out the coffee grower. Because when a coffee grower, if I have my land and the climate where I am is conducive for coffee growing, I don't need to go to register with anybody. All I need to do is to find an opportunity, get the nursery seedlings, plant your coffee, and deliver it where it can be processed. Because at this rate, we are going to create a situation where the county governments will behave like what President Museveni used to say, that, you know, immigration officers think their duty is to prevent people from traveling, and not to help people to travel. So the county governments will start thinking that their duty is to prevent people from growing unless you go to them. And believe me, you Peter, when you go to them for this permit, you will pay money, even if you say don't pay. Because a cartel will establish itself somewhere that will deal with how to deal with this. And this over-regulation, I think we need to get it out of this statute. Madam Speaker, and why I even say that should be removed, Peter, Madam Speaker, through you, is that when you read clause 26 together with clause 27, then you see the danger. Because clause 27 establishes an offense, that a person who contravenes the provisions of subsection 1 on a registration commits an offense and is liable on conviction a fine not exceeding 1 million. Now, if a farmer wakes up and plants half an acre of his coffee without that permit, he will then be arrested and be prosecuted and be fined 1 million shillings. You see the danger? So we need to remove that, Madam Speaker, so that we leave the farmers, anybody with their land who can plant coffee. All you need now for quality control is to license pulping, grading, and marketing, so that we are in a more orderly issue. In fact, Peter, if you look at, Madam Speaker, then clause 29, it says such a license should be renewed every year. So a coffee farmer must go for a license every year for a crop that lasts 100 years. Then it doesn't make a lot of legal sense. And I would want to urge, Madam Speaker, again, Madam Speaker, the establishment of the coffee research. Again, I don't know what informed you to say that the headquarters of the institute, the Coffee Research Institute, shall be in Kiambu. Yes. Unless you are talking of the existing coffee research in Ruiru. Yes. Then, so that as counties that grow coffee, Kisii, Bungoma, Nyamira, wherever we don't want to start competing, then you should say that the Coffee Research Institute shall be the one already established in Ruiru, or something like that. Because when you say Kiambu, I will say, why not Bungoma? Why not Embu? Why not Meru? Why not Nyeri? Why not Kisii? You know, so that this ambiguity is clear. And the coffee research, Madam Speaker, should also be within this statute liberalized, so that the coffee research in Ruiru can actually open research satellites in Kisii, in Bungoma, in Kitale, wherever. Yes, good if it is. So that we can also have, you know, we have different climatical conditions in various parts of the country. So that, and the research should continue, so that if we want to change the cycle of the Meru farmer from Mira to coffee, we should also have research that brings in various varieties of coffee. Madam Speaker, Those are some of the issues specific to the statute. I want to say this, Madam Speaker, also, that this bill, and you remember the uproar we had here, I don't know if Professor Ngeri is here, he is, when the current Minister for Agriculture took money from the World Bank and denied all parts of the country and put it in one region. We must take away this discretion from errand ministers. And Madam Speaker, I would want to urge that we have a provision in this act, in this bill, that says donor intervention funds for agriculture, and particularly for a crop like coffee, must be equitably distributed across the country in all coffee growing areas. Why would you put 3.6 billion in one area and ignore all the others? Yet this money can do a lot of difference for everybody else. So we need that provision in the act. Madam Speaker, as I finish, coffee has made countries. Brazil is Brazil because of coffee. Colombia is Colombia because of coffee. Bolivia is Bolivia because of coffee. Madam Speaker, Kenya used to be a major coffee growing and exporting country. Those who went to school earlier, Madam Speaker, like my friend Peter and so on, and others, Professor Ngeri, much ahead of us, there was a book we read in primary school called The Journey of Mr. and Mrs. Mutabingwa, Kato, Kokogonza, and Jack. These fellows who left Bukoba to go to Dar es Salaam for coffee, to Zanzibar actually, for a coffee meeting. But the writer of this book traces a journey of coffee growing in Kenya, from Bukoba to Jinja, to Mbale, to Bungoma, to Kitale, to Kiambu, to Arusha, then to Dar es Salaam, and eventually to fly to Zanzibar. That is a book we used to read from January to December, at the end of 1 year in Standard 4. You have walked through East Africa with coffee. That tells you how important East Africa was as a coffee growing area. Uganda. Madam Speaker, can I beg for a little more time?
Can I give you 2 minutes?
5.
There are a lot of interest, Mr.
Yes. Yeah?
Just try to summarize.
Okay. Madam Speaker, that journey tells you how coffee was important. Madam Speaker, as we talk about coffee, Peter Ndwiga will tell you, 20 years ago, Vietnam imported Ruiru 11 seedlings from Kenya to start growing coffee. Today, Vietnam is number 2 to Brazil in the growth and export of coffee. We gave them our seedlings, Ruiru 11. They are now second to Brazil in the growth and export of quality coffee. In Kenya, we are still struggling to reinvent a new statute to manage our coffee. You go to the countryside, and I'm happy you have put in this bill, Madam Speaker, extension officers. When we were growing up, Madam Speaker, every once a month, a man called Karakacha, agriculture officer, in the village they were called Karakacha. A Karakacha will come to your home, Madam Speaker, and will walk around with your father and your mother. And I used to see him whipping parents for neglecting their coffee. They will go around and see it is not enough to plant coffee. It is more important to look after your coffee. And by looking after your coffee, you have an income for your family. We want serious extension services to help the farmer. And I'm happy that you have put that in this bill so that farmers are not just left to themselves. You plant coffee, you don't know when to prune it, you don't know when to top dress it, you don't know when to weed it, you don't know what to do with your berries if there is frost, you don't know when to spray. This is what they should do. And I'm happy that you have incorporated this. As my brother from West Pokot walks in, West Pokot, by the way, is now one of the new frontiers for coffee growing. And as West Pokot is one of the frontiers, I want the majority leader to join this house in condemning Minister Muya for taking all the money from the World Bank and forgetting that Pokot grows coffee, Trans Nzoia grows coffee, Bungoma grows coffee, Kisii grows coffee, Nyamira grows coffee, Kakamega grows coffee, Vihiga grows coffee, and takes the money to one region. And when we asked him, he arrogantly says, I'll give them cotton money. You know, cotton is not the alternative to coffee. And if you go to West Pokot, you can't tell a farmer, don't grow coffee, grow cotton. They are growing what is suitable for the climate. We want to see that any money, whether it is from the taxpayer or from the donor, to benefit all Kenyans, regardless of where they come from, regardless of where authority for the time being resides, so that Kenyans can be able to grow together and be happy as one. One big happy family of Kenyan farmers called Kenyans. And Honorable Ndwiga, I salute you because this has been a calling for you. And continue leading this country in the revival of coffee. Finally, I want to encourage you that set up a parliamentary caucus on coffee. A parliamentary caucus on coffee with voluntary members of all of us who come from the frontier where coffee is growing, so that we can be able day to day to review existing legislation, bring new legislation, and even lobby donors for supporting this program so that our people can move away from poverty and start living more decent lives than they currently do. I support the bill, Madam Speaker.
Senator, I think Senator Gertrude will come after Senator Ongeri. I want to give this opportunity to Senator Ongeri for now.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to what I think is the most important bill, Coffee Bill 2020, before this House. And I say so because there was a time in the history of this country during early years of our independence when we had this rather disastrous moment of Chepkube. The Chepkube was the black gold that gave the name of the coffee. That it was such a black gold, such an important element of our commodity that people traveled, and I could see people carrying money in sacks from the banks to go and buy coffee in Webuye, Chepkube, the other areas, because the international market was such that it was able to scale the heights of the topmost prices internationally. And I know from my account where I come from, both Kisii and Nyamira, that we had one of the most effective cooperative society was the Coffee Society of Kisii. They are the most important imposing building, the Kisii Coffee Building, and whoever was the coffee manager in Kisii was a much bigger person than even the bank manager in terms of rating, because he handled a commodity which was precious in the hands of people. I'm saddened that there's been a complete erosion of this commodity that was able to put food on the table, that was able to educate our children, not only to the secondary level, but the universities, and also who are going out of this country, got education because of coffee that they were earning from the small holding, which was properly organized, and they were able to deliver the cherries and other things to the coffee threshing places. Even the small little plot I have in Kitale, in Trans Nzoia, I see on the riverbed the coffee building, cleaning facilities which were there, and the coffee just disappeared like that. So what is this bill seeking to do? Because it's such a precious commodity, because it has a very high value, and I think Chair Ndwiga, Senator Ndwiga, has testified today that he smiled at the bank recently when this reorganization came, And when we started talking about this coffee and the cartels who had completely taken over, they didn't leave any room for anybody to come in. And if you came in, even if you are a grower, you were treated as an intruder. Because of this noise, and the Committee of Agriculture, which took action and started speaking loudly, and those of us who are members of the supporters of the committee from coffee growing areas, we made our noise known. You're beginning to see some level of sanity creeping in. That's why they are fetching the better prices. This is analogous to the tea situation. Recently, when we started making noise and we had an act or part of Senate here and National Assembly, I've seen KTDA in a very frantic manner trying to reorganize the assets. I even saw some of the dividends being paid from non-tea assets, non-tea earnings. In other words, the investment they had made in non-tea assets, they are now paying dividends which we never used to get before. So then this bill is seeking to rationalize and be able to control the cartels that have been both the managers of the coffee industry, they have been the marketers, and they have been the ones who are collaborating with the international buyers. In fact, they are one and the same thing. In fact, if you check the buyers here and the buyers in London or in Germany or in Egypt or in the other places, you find it's the same group of people who are all over the place. And therefore, the farmer, the poor little scaleholder farmer, was held captive of these cartels, and they were unable to move. That's why you started seeing the coffee industry sinking. Similarly, pyrethrum sank under the same element. I don't know where we got this animal from, AFA, the Agricultural Food Authority. It has completely messed up the agricultural industry, and more so having regard to the fact that agriculture is a devolved function, and therefore there was no order on handling individual crops, particularly coffee, pyrethrum, sugar, and tea. This has become a menace to a farmer in this country. And therefore, what this Senate must do is to pump sense into a legal process, a legal mechanism that will restore the dignity and the ownership of agriculture, of coffee growing farmers, so that they can be able to earn out of their sweat. What they now do, they put so much sweat, but what they get out is peanuts, because the costs are spread out. By the time the coffee society takes their dues, and then the marketeers, I call them marketeers for want of a better word, take the big chunk of the profit, the farmer, when he looks at the cutaway net profit, it's not something to smile about. And therefore the farmer is left in a desolate position. So then, what is it that is innovative in this bill? I think what is innovative in this bill is a company incorporated under the Companies Act, where there will be, in the Capital Markets Authority, where there will be an exchange for this commodity, so that at least this commodity will be open out there for the highest bidder. So that whatever is the auction value at the Capital Markets Authority, like all other commodities, that will be the price that is assigned to the farmer. So that's the innovative part of this bill. The second innovative part is separating the functions, both of the national government and the county government. And I'll come to that a little later, because those functions are clearly spelled out. Because if you want to have a controlled system then we must be able to create those functions. And I think for any avoidance of doubt, if you look at Schedule 2 of this bill, we have now seen that the coffee buyer's license is a function of the board, which will be created, and then the independent capping laboratory license is a function of the board. The houseman's license is a function of the board. Coffee liquor license is the board. Processed coffee import permit is the board. Clean coffee movement permit for export is board. And then, of course, from number 7 all the way to number 15 is a county function. Coffee nursery certificate, commercial coffee miller's license, warehouse license, coffee nursery certificates, pulping station license, growers milling license, coffee roasters license, parchment permit from the county of origin, and clean coffee movement permit from the county of origin. And therefore, if you look at the separation of powers, I think the chair of the committee very appropriately have apportioned the functions. Why I'm bringing this schedule into this discussion is that when you look at the representation at the board level, then I think there needs to be a little bit of adjustment so that the county governments get more representation. Although you have assigned 2 directors who will be nominated by the Council of Governors, I would have liked to see a higher representation because there are many more coffee growing counties, and we'll have a higher representation so that they are able to really do a good job. Even then, if that's not possible, then we must find a way on how the Council of Governors will be able to bring in very effective board operators, board members who are very effective in the operation of that function. Now, I did say that if you look at Article 10, the Board of Directors and their functions, one of the major functions they will carry out, 10F, is conduct local and international coffee market intelligence and promotional activities, including the application of the Kenya Coffee Mark of Origin. I heard my good friend, Senator Murkomen, saying that the ODM party leader did say about the mark of Kenya product, and this is already contained in this bill. Therefore, the party leader was not out of already was thinking ahead of the bill which is before us here today. And therefore, one of the things then the board will be doing is to register, maintain and publish up-to-date register of coffee dealers, coffee growers, nursery operations, coffee cooperative societies, coffee associations, and coffee estates. Now, if you look at the Article 23, these are the same functions the county governments are also performing. And I think we need to look on how to iron out so that we don't have a duplication of services and functions. I think, Chair, you've already seen that. If you look at the role of the county government is to maintain an up-to-date register of coffee growers, nursery operators, coffee cooperatives, societies, coffee associations, coffee estates, that country, coffee, and I think that's a duplication. But there is no harm in the Council of Governors bequeathing that register to the board so that they can be able to put it on board and be able to carry out the function. So I see my time is not, I would have liked to speak much more, but one thing that I want to bring out, that for the coffee farmer to carry home something tangible, because the county governments are going to invest in the farmer. And therefore, we want to encourage the county governments to invest in the farmer, whether in the coffee industry, the tea industry, or otherwise. And therefore, we should give them a higher responsibility so that they can be able to carry it out.
Senator, Order, Senator, you still have 7 minutes to go.
Oh, I have still 7 minutes to go. Yeah. So thank you. We still then have so that the farmer is encouraged by the county governments. This should be the first function of the county governments. And all this credit coming either from the World Bank or from other Bretton Woods institutions or from the donor countries to the farming industry, and particularly the coffee industry, that money should find a direct injection into the county governments so that the county governments can then dispense that money directly to the farmer. And very little should be left at the board level for, if any, just for purposes of any percentage, for purposes of their normal administrative functions at the board level. But the bulk of that money, to be able to improve the coffee industry, should be transmitted to the county governments directly to the coffee farmers, who can then be able to benefit from the new technologies and the new knowledge in the area of coffee industry. One of the elements is research, the coffee diseases that may affect farmers, the provision of fertilizers, inputs to the farming industry, the way they are picking the cherries, the way they are drying them up, the way they are carrying them to the marketers or to the marketing point. It's very critical. The movement of that coffee to point A to point B is very critical because of the security of the coffee being a high value commodity, and therefore it's subject to being stolen by cartels who have not learned to sweat and earn their living through sweating and by farming, and therefore wanting to carry away the farmers' very little minimal industry. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker now, not Madam Speaker, I believe, Mr. Speaker, that this is a very important element, that any money coming should be a direct injection to the farmer. And I like the idea somewhere along in the bill, somewhere in the bill where it states value addition. And I was very proud. Today when I'm traveling out, I like buying the tea made in Kenya. It's a pride. And when you go to the visiting country, when they receive it, you can see a broad smile in their eyes. It's one way of marketing our product. I would like to see a similar thing where you are carrying coffee made in Kenya, so that it carries that name. And this labeling of the grading, the AA, the BB, I think we should now get into that element of it. We've been taken for a ride and I think you've heard it from the chair himself, that after labeling, it's all packed in one bag and sold as AA product, and therefore the loser is the farmer who doesn't get full credit for what he has earned for that product. Kisii and Nyamira and those who are growing coffee will be very happy that today, as their senator, I'm fully backing this bill, and I'd like to see it come into law almost immediately, if we can be able to manage to pass it through the second reading and then through the other processes, and it becomes the law. It will be the best gift to the people of Kenya, because coffee has suffered so much, and we can now start reviving coffee farming in our industry. Just as we also want to continue reviving the tea industry, pyrethrum industry, and the sugar industry, and the cotton industry. These are very critical products, agricultural products for the farmer. Once the farmer has got all these products in place, and then we have value addition, the micro enterprises. You will be able to make a farmer the richest person in this country. You will be a happy person, and will be able to contribute to the economy, to the GDP of this country in a much more effective manner than hitherto he has done, because of the so-called marketeers and the cartels who have taken the role of earnings on behalf of the farmer, where the farmer has no opportunity to even recoup some of his earnings. With those few remarks, I fully support this bill.
Senator Inima Gertrude Msuruve.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to support this bill. And it must be noted clearly that historically, from a very long time ago, around 1893. Coffee was a very important cash crop from the time it originated. And I remember also clearly when I was growing up, I could see plantains of coffee. My grandfather planted together with also tea, because these were considered cash crops that would help families, because there was a stable kind of income from growing of coffee. And I know, yes, coffee is largely grown in Mount Kenya regions, in Kiambu, and also other parts of the country. But Honorable Speaker, I want to inform the floor of this House that in as much as we are saying that it was a cash crop and a big cash crop and benefited the farmers in terms of getting money, especially when it comes to foreign exchange earning, it reached a point when the farmers themselves were uprooting the plantains. And I remember even in Kiambu when I was a lecturer at JKUAT, there were also plantains at Karangaita farm, but they were all uprooted because the owners realized that coffee was not anymore being productive economically. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that this bill by Senator Ndwiga is a bill that needs to be supported by all means, simply because it is addressing the desperate issues that coffee farmers had, that they would spend lots of time farming coffee, and they would spend a lot of money, paying the laborers and all that, but the returns were actually not there. And it is not only in Kiambu where the plantains were uprooted. By the way, even in where I come from, where my father originated, they were uprooted. My grandfather was planting, coffee. But when you go there now, you find the trees are not there. They were uprooted a long time ago because they didn't seem to have any value addition. And this is the kind of desperate situation, Honorable Speaker, that our farmers go through. That sometimes they spend lots of time farming, toiling, and all that. But when it comes to returns, the returns go to somebody else, Honorable Speaker. And it has also happened in the Mumia Sugar Company and the sugar growing areas, Honorable Speaker. The same case, the same frustration that coffee farmers were facing in the coffee growing areas is the same case also that sugar farmers have been facing in Mumias until some of them abdicated the issue of planting sugar cane anymore. That you wait for so many years, you planted, but when it comes to the returns, they go to somebody else. In the name of brokers, Honorable Speaker. And issues of brokers in farming is real. And we have to look for a mechanism of ensuring that we are protecting our farmers from brokers, Honorable Speaker. And this bill comes in, clearly to protect farmers of coffee from brokerage, Honorable Speaker, because the bill talks about separation of powers, which is very important, Honorable Speaker. It cannot be that the same person who is farming is the same person who will do the milling, is the same person who will do the payment. Honorable Speaker, that is corruption at its highest level, Honorable Speaker, which we should not condone, Honorable Speaker. So this bill comes in handily to ensure that, the issue of dialogue, the issue of, exploiting farmers comes to a stop, Honorable Speaker. It has to be very clear that the person who is going to do the milling is separate from the person who is going to farm, is separate from the person who is going to make payments, Honorable Speaker. And it is very clear, Honorable Speaker, that as a country we have signed very many international laws to protect our farmers, to protect even the health institution, because these are core institutions. When it comes to farming, it is a core institution. When it comes also to health, it's a core institution. And Kenya is a signatory of the the Abuja and Maputo declaration that seek to support these areas of health and farming. So it is just important that we stick to the declarations and ensure that we adhere to international standards and international laws so that we protect our farmers, Honorable Speaker. When it comes to farming, Honorable Speaker, the farmer does not only help himself, he also helps the entire society. He also helps the entire nation. He also helps internationally, Honorable Speaker, because it is in this coffee farming that you find that laborers have been employed, Honorable Speaker, and if laborers are employed in the farming area, it means that there's creation of employment in the area where coffee is being planted, Honorable Speaker, and that addresses one of the major issues that we have of unemployment, Honorable Speaker. And when they're talking of an issue of employment, Honorable Speaker, it does not have to be blue-collar job where you find yourself in a tie and coat and suit and good skirt suit, sitting in an office. Even blue economy comes in to support the employment industry, Honorable Speaker, and farmers play a big role, Honorable Speaker. They employ themselves, they employ their friends, they employ their neighbors, Honorable Speaker, and they're able to earn a livelihood out of that. So there's need for us to ensure that we are supporting farmers, we are protecting farmers, and this is what this bill seeks to do, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there are so many cartels that have been in this industry, the coffee industry, and these cartels should come to a stop, Honorable Speaker, because when we are talking of Kenyan coffee, it is brewed internationally, and it is very expensive, Honorable Speaker. Sometimes it's even taken raw from the farmers, and once it comes back to Kenya, even the same farmer who planted that coffee, Honorable Speaker, is not able to afford it because it becomes damn expensive. So there is need for us to ensure that even the farmer himself who plants the coffee is able to afford the same coffee that he has planted, Honorable Speaker. Just like cane, you'll find that the farmers who grow cane, they're not able to afford even buying sugar, yet that cane that they planted is the same cane that will eventually be refined and becomes sugar, Honorable Speaker. This is irony of ironies, that you are the producer but you're not able to consume what you've already produced because you cannot afford it, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, I support this bill by the Duga, and I have to say, Honorable Speaker, even the issue of registration is important. Simply because there is need for county governments to ensure that when it comes to coffee farmers, they are registered. When it comes to the licenses, they are registered, specifically. Like, for example, if someone is a miller, let that person be known by the county governments. Let that person also have a license to do what he's supposed to do. When it comes to also selling, manufacturing and all that, let the licenses be there, Honorable Speaker, so that the farmers are known. And they should not only be known, Honorable Speaker, they should be facilitated, they should be helped, and there should be linkages. This bill talks about linkages, Honorable Speaker. And I have to say, Honorable Speaker, another frustration that our farmers get, Honorable Speaker, and not only in the coffee growing areas. Sometimes our farmers spend a lot of time doing what they're supposed to do. They plant the cash crops, they plant the foods, but when it comes to now selling, they have nowhere to sell, Honorable Speaker. And I want to give an example of avocado farmers. Some of them, Honorable Speaker, after harvesting avocados, they have nowhere to take the avocados. Yet our avocados are very expensive, Honorable Speaker. The avocados can be used in making avocado oil and all that, that even that avocado grower cannot even afford. But when it comes to the farmers who plant avocados, you'll find that they just give the avocados to cows because they have nowhere to take the avocados. So, Honorable Speaker, there must be linkages to help our farmers know where to take the products that they actually plant. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that when it comes to issues of policy relating to coffee, yes, the register should be maintained by the national government, but it should cascade to the county government, so that in the county governments are aware of the growers of coffee in the area, and apart from knowing the growers of coffee, they should also know who is licensed, Honorable Speaker. And when it comes to licensing, it should not be an issue that is so complicated, Honorable Speaker, because naturally Kenyans are farmers, and naturally we have the art of farming. So if we have the art of farming, it has to be nurtured. It has to be honest, so that we even become professionals, farmers, and we become also skilled in whatever we are doing. Farmers need to be encouraged by all ways. Honorable Speaker, I've seen farmers very desperate, not knowing sometimes where to take their products. And I remember there's a year when we were just in Parliament, farmers planted a lot of maize, but their maize was rotting. It was rotting in the South, Honorable Speaker. They did not know where to take their maize, and yet their children did not have fees, and yet maybe they do not have NHIF, and yet maybe they cannot maintain their own families. Honorable Speaker, it is a sorrow state. We have to look for ways of encouraging our farmers. We have to ensure that the coffee farmers are encouraged. We have to ensure that the sugarcane farmers in Mumias, in Kakamega, in Western are actually encouraged, Honorable Speaker. We cannot sit on our laurels when farmers are not being supported, Honorable Speaker. We have to look for a way of ensuring that our farmers are actually protected from brokers. In fact, what ails the farming industry? What is just the brokerage that someone decides I'm a farmer, at the same time I'm a miller, at the same time I'm an accountant. I mean, it can't work, Honorable Speaker. The pains that farmers go through, we have to see how to alleviate these pains, Honorable Speaker, because farmers play a big role in the economy of this country. And playing a big role in the economy of this country, they should be the first people to support, Honorable Speaker. So I support this bill that the chairman agriculture has come up with, and I believe that, Honorable Speaker, that we are going to deliberate on this issue of of this bill and ensure that it sees the light of the day, and also ensure that it becomes law, Honorable Speaker. When it becomes law, Honorable Speaker, then the farmers are going to commend this Senate, because they'll see that we stood in at the right time to ensure that they're not exploited, Honorable Speaker. And this issue of the common man being exploited, Honorable Speaker, it must come to a stop, Honorable Speaker. The common man is exploited in very many ways, Honorable Speaker. And even I want to give an example where the common man is exploited, like even in taxi drivers, the ones who drive, do the taxi, Honorable Speaker. You see them working so many hours, Honorable Speaker. The youths of this country, Honorable Speaker, working very many hours, but at the end of the day, they do not get the real proceeds from their work, Honorable Speaker. Why? Because there's a mechanism in place that does not allow them to get directly, Honorable Speaker. We must ensure that people get from their sweat, Honorable Speaker. Direct investment must have direct benefits, Honorable Speaker. It is painful to have a direct investment. You have taken loans from the bank to do direct investment, but when it comes to rewards, it is diverted, Honorable Speaker. I can feel the pains of the farmers in Kiambu, Honorable Speaker. I can feel the pains of farmers, sugarcane farmers in Mumias, Honorable Speaker. The farmers in Western, Honorable Speaker, they must be protected, Honorable Speaker. And there need to ensure, Honorable Speaker, that laws are in place, Honorable Speaker, so that when it comes to even issues of sugar, issues of coffee, issues of farming, they should not be politicized. Policies have to come in place to ensure that our farmers are protected, Honorable Speaker. They have a right to earn from their sweat. They have a right to educate their children. They have a right to go to hospital. They have a right to afford NHIF. They have a right, Honorable Speaker, because they must eat from their sweat. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I support this bill.
Senator Chionga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the bill on coffee by Senator Ndwika. Mr. Speaker, I would like to start by congratulating Senator Ndwika for both being the chair of Agricultural Committee, where I once served, and now he is presenting the bill on the floor of this House in plea to the members to vote for it so as to improve the lives of Kenyans who belong to agriculture sector. Mr. Speaker, to start with, I want to say that over 70% of the rural households depends on agriculture in Kenya and even globally, where agriculture is practiced. Coffee is not left behind because it's part of the agricultural crops that that contributes to the growth of the economy, both in Kenya and for those countries that are doing agriculture. It is with this in mind that we really need to appreciate this bill we really need to up the game when it comes to agricultural crops that we value, that brings the economy or grows the economy of this country. Later in the years in 1980s, we used to see the crop of coffee being a giant share, especially the shareholders of this country's economy came from the agricultural sector, where coffee was part of the value. And right now, the crops are being killed one by one. We need to assess and to know, or to redress, where did the country go wrong? Where did the system start failing so as to fail agriculture commodities that we value in Kenya? Mr. Speaker, the agriculture is devolved, and somebody somewhere in Kenya still lives in daydreaming that agriculture still belongs to the national government. And this contributes a lot to the killing of these particular crops we are talking about. The other day we were making noise, and we are still even making noise in western part of Kenya and all those regions that grow sugar. Why are we making this noise? It's because somebody somewhere is trying to mislead the world by grabbing all that is meant for farmers to make it a national function. We need to leave it aside. We need to leave it for the farmers to breathe their fresh air. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Agriculture needs to realize, and I want to state clearly, to realize that it is upon the farmers to uphold and to enjoy the benefit that they have invested in, and not to be controlled by any sector somewhere. We have mentioned in the bill, or they have mentioned in the bill about the boards. We want the boards that are mentioned here to be revamped so as to look deep into the issues of the coffee farmers. The same way it happens with sugar, cotton and others, we do not want it to happen again. Because when we are realizing the mistakes that we have done, it is there that we start finding our way back. Mr. Speaker, farmers in Kenya needs to be protected, just as my fellow colleagues have said. And it is from these bills that farmers will be protected, because we shall have the reference point. We shall have reference points that are documented, and we shall be always referring to a document that is undersigned and passed by the representatives of Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that people tend to ignore a lot of things that are very obvious. And one of the things that they tend to ignore, it is agriculture. We want to tell the people of Kenya that we are here to protect them. We are here to make policies. We are here to bring up bills like the one Senator Dwika has presented, so that the Kenyan people know that their interests are valued. And not only their interests, and we do not want to leave this interest to a written document. We want it to be implemented. We want the country or the concerned parties to implement what we document here and what we pass here. I wish again to say that the noise that we have made, I wish it becomes a smile, the way Senator Dwika is saying that there are smiles all over when he's headed to the bank. How I wish that smile is transformed and transferred also to the other farmers who value their crops in Kenya, like the western part of region who are growing sugarcane, the ones who are growing maize, the ones who grew once cotton to be revamped, the ones who are growing every sector or every crop or any crop they feel like they can invest in. Mr. Speaker, it is very sad when we talk about corruption. And corruption is all that has killed our economy, where few people control the whole. They want to behave like they want to control everything that they see. We have our constitution that we value a lot. And if this bill actually, we strictly want to follow what is here, then we might not go wrong. I want to urge Senator Dwika that when it comes to passing of this bill, We are supporting you, we shall support you, and let us stand together to support one another. And when we are supporting one another, we are not supporting ourselves. We are supporting the representatives, we are supporting the citizens of Kenya. And when we support citizens of Kenya, that is where our livelihood will improve. I want to end by saying that it will be both. It will be both our responsibility and the responsibility of our government to make sure that what is passed in this bill comes to pass. And any other bill that touches on agriculture, let us embrace that bill. Let us support that bill so as to make sure that Kenyans who are suffering on the ground there, they realize the benefits of agriculture once again and their life be revamped. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support this bill, and I congratulate Senator who has brought it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to support and congratulate the Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries for this very, very important bill. I just want to contextualize the importance of this bill by saying that the value of coffee as a percentage of all export goods represented in 2017 5.5%, while its share of GDP is at 0.22%. Mr. Speaker, this is very high. I suspect the figures now would even be higher because this data is a bit dated. Also, the coffee industry contributes an average of 23 billion per year in foreign earnings. This comes forth after tourism, after horticulture, and after tea. This just contextualizes the importance of coffee in a country where up to 80% of the people actually practice agriculture. We are key, if you look at the internet and if you look at the various information on coffee, Kenyan coffee trends very high, is well liked. In fact, it is one of the world's 5 best coffees in terms of a brand. So well recognized and well known. Over time, of course, we have always lamented that more could have been done in terms of coffee and especially value addition. And I had other members mention this earlier. Because when we have that level of value addition, I remember we used to have the story of saying that coffee is exported, but it could be exported at better variance so that we can actually reap the best because other companies come in and they're able to do that. And I see that the institute that has been put into place, apart from other responsibilities, also has that to take care of. It's amazing that most of the time when we think of coffee and its growth, we think of Mount Kenya, but there are many other areas, and therefore we're looking at this as a national issue that really touches on various counties as well. The Abadia Range, Kisii, Nyanza, Bungoma, Nakuru, and Kericho also topping up. So, Mr. Speaker, I really want to congratulate the Chair of Agriculture Committee. When I looked at this bill, I thought this is the sort of bill that you'd want to have for so many other sectors in terms of the crops. Be it tea, be it pyrethrum, for example, indeed be it coconut. Because we find in terms of our typology in Kenya, different plants are really, taken care of in different parts of the country, but very useful for those communities. Mr. Speaker, and you'll remember, apart from the coffee bill, we are talking about the tea bill, we have the coconut bill, because most important, we need to be able to come up with a structure for each of these plants or for each of these sectors so that they can be able to be really cushioned well. This particular bill introduces the coffee bill, the Coffee Board of Kenya. It introduces very important regulatory provisions. It gives clear roles for the national and the counties, and really just enhancing that counties can do more in terms of promotion of coffee. Financial provisions, the Coffee Research Institute of Kenya, very, very key, so that they're able to do research, the terms of service are given there, how to conduct their business, but more important that more and more research over time can improve this sector. And then the financial provisions of also of the institute are given. So I think the bill is very broad in touching most of these aspects, but more characteristically trying to decipher and have the national components and also the county components, and where that intermediary role can be, and how each of these can play their role to their utmost ability. Where we have over 250,000 Kenyans employed in the production of coffee, and this is just in one sector, that is the production itself. We haven't talked about the planting, we haven't talked about the nurseries, we haven't talked about the export markets. Then we're talking about really a sector that carries very many people. And therefore, what other senators have said, I think I heard them on the floor of the House, the issue of ensuring that we have better prices becomes very critical, because this means more. In fact, there's a time when many producers, and indeed even those with exporters, and those who would even want to use the products, would want to make sure that a fair bargaining price has been put into place. This was a big debate, especially in terms of French beans production. But you know, the whole issue of ethical trade, so much money and time and effort has been put, and is the price commensurate with what has gone in? And I know there are certain countries, for example, in Europe, which will only buy certain brands when they show that the issue of ethical trade has been put into consideration. So the issue of making sure that there's money in the pocket, I had that being mentioned, and also regulating on market issues, especially the marketing. And I think I heard Senator Musurube speak to this a few minutes ago, talking about that it's not just not important, it's just not enough to be able to produce the product if you're not able to market it well. And make sure these regulatory schemes to be able to do that are put into place. So, as I have said, most of the structures in this bill are the same structures we'd want for the tea, for pyrethrum, for coconut, for all our main sectors, for cotton, for all our main sectors, so that they can be run very, very well. I remember some time back there was a debate of whether should we have these legislation as separate legislation or one standalone legislation for crops. But I think what came out from it is that most of these sectors are so particular. So it will be important to actually designate and be able to disaggregate all of them so that you're able to do this. I think it was Senator Wetangulo spoke about parliamentary caucus for coffee within Parliament. I think that's very, very important. And indeed also parliamentary caucuses also for all the other important aspects for the various crops. Mr. Speaker, it's a very well written bill. I just want to alert, even before I go into the provisions of the bill so I don't forget, at clause 25, we need to be able to correct that spelling error there. At subclause 2, line number 2, an applicant for a license under subsection 1 shall submit an application in the prescribed, I think the word intended is form, F-O-R-M, and not from, together with the prescribed fees, because that's important, and that gives the general provision. So I think that needs to, as we go into committee of the whole and as we make our amendments, then we can make that a necessary amendment so that there's clarity in exactly what we are saying. This bill is to ensure development and promotion of coffee industry and for connected purposes, and that coffee board makes it very, very essential for them to be able to do this with their specific roles and their specific responsibilities, which are very clear, which I will not go into. Mr. Speaker, maybe just to ask from the chair of this committee, even as we bring in our ideas and recommendations, at clause 17, where we're talking, I think, about the board there and the qualifications and the person there. We have the qualification. A person is qualified for appointment as a corporation secretary if that person holds a degree from a recognized university. And I don't know whether you have this maybe later on in the regulations, but I would propose that not just a recognized university from recognized degree from a university, but within that related area for which this bill is dealing with. So that somebody with a background in agriculture or in something that is going to be useful and more targeted. So this person will be also better informed. And then at part 3, the role of the county governments, that's very, very clear. Throughout the bill, the provisions for the national government, I think, have been outlined clearly, but then we have the role of the county governments, and I just want to confirm whether the specific responsibility for the county governments has been prescribed directly. I don't seem to be able to pick up on it directly. I think I saw something like that. I saw on the arrangement of clauses, we have role of the county governments, and I think the intimated understanding is that all the other roles are national, and now we're just specifically talking about the county government's role, rather than have the county governments, the role of the county governments, and then also the role of the counties, as most of the legislation has tended to have. But each of the county governments, each of the county governments shall implement the national policy, of course, which is very important, and maintain up-to-date register. This is one of the things that this bill also brings into place, that whole idea of registration, the whole idea of licenses, the whole idea of processing for licenses, the whole idea of reason for rejection of licenses, and the processes for ensuring that another license is given, the whole idea of renewal of licenses, which is an annual thing, and the fee prescribed that has to be paid, the whole idea of let licensing, just managing to make sure that anybody who's involved in this sector, people know exactly what it is they're doing. And then we have there the coffee associations and coffee estates. Then C, this is for the county governments, consider applications for the certificate, permits and licenses enumerated under the second schedule. And I think this is what other members were also talking about, because the second schedule is confounded in the sense that the second schedule has both the issuing authority as the board, and I suspect the board here, we're looking at it at a national level, and then we have the county governments. Yet when we come to this specific clause, it's saying under the role of county governments, consider applications for the certificates, permits and licenses enumerated under the schedule. It's like they're in charge of all this, yet the schedule itself is very specific. So maybe some sort of cross-referencing might be important, just to say which aspects are they be considered the county government ones, and I suspect these are from number 7 to number 15. So I think just separating that will be able to ensure that that confounding is not there. But offering extension services, and we were told about how we used to have those extension officers who are so critical in just coming to ensure that the farmer was on the right track, reviving all this, and then also in collaboration with law enforcement, ensuring security in tea growing areas, among others, as overarching roles that just make it possible for counties to be able to thrive in the production of coffee. And then at 24, each county government may enact county legislation. This is very, very important. Always getting the support and making sure that there's a fit in matching between the sector and the counties, through the CC, who has been given lots of responsibilities here, but also through the members of the county assembly, who are really the representatives of the people, who can do a lot also in catapulting this specific area. The regulatory provisions are very clear. For example, in terms of the name, the location, all these have to be given. I talked already on the licensing and the need for the licensing control, the licensing authority being able to put into place the various provisions. There's a penalty clause there, and for the first time I'm seeing an innovation about confiscation of products, apart from the jail and the fine, because these products are very dear. This is expected also to act as a deterrent. So I think that is quite innovative, because most of the clauses for penalty are either financial, fines, or imprisonment, And then the Coffee Research Institute. Most of these institutes have been in existence for some time. What really is the problem is the funding strategy for these institutes, because there's so much they can do. If you're thinking about even now, at the time when we have COVID, and you're thinking about some of the vaccines or some of the innovations, we know that over time there have been teams, for example, we made breakthroughs in the medication or in the research for HIV between University of Nairobi and Oxford University. And therefore, we'd want our institutes to be leading institutes in terms of providing some of these answers. But most of the time, when you really just have a cursory glance, you find that the issue mainly is the issue of finances. So I really hope that this bill will be able to put money into this so that all this that this institute is meant to do, and these provisions are very clear at clause 43, advising national and county governments, on the resource requirements, prioritizing areas, facilitating the use of improved production and technology, and establishing adequate feedback systems from agricultural producers. These are very, very keen. It's a big thing there. I think also the issue of value addition also goes there. Apart from just value addition for the product, then we also have value addition in terms of even the number of employees that are now coming into the sector. When we go to the export market, I've looked at the data, and we have up to about 8 key exporters of coffee. These are organizations and groups that keep employing more and more of the people who need to be there. So the Institute shall make policy, identify production policy. All these are in that clause, subclause 2. Then we also have the chief executive officer, and again their responsibility and the qualifications have been put in there. Clause 57 is very important because then it calls for accountability of the institution. So this is on accounts and audit and the process of how that should be engaged into simultaneously. So I think this gives a very broad and very clear perspective of what we expect within the coffee industry over time, and whatever we're talking about here, once it is implemented, we really have a situation where we can have an increment in terms of the production. One of the strengths of this bill is in interlinking of all the various key institutions, right from the grassroots, through the county assemblies, coming through to the boards, coming through the institutions, coming to the coffee board itself, coming to the responsibilities that have been given for the CS, coming to the responsibilities that have been given by the CEC, and the provisions for each of these. In fact, both Schedule 1 and Schedule 1 mainly really just gives the outlining of how that board should work in terms of very specific terms. The time the board should be called and how they should be able to conduct themselves. So by putting these provisions within the area, then we know we can get to a point where we can handle our coffee well. Our coffee, well known as Arabica, but with 5 variants: SL28, SL34, K7, Ruiru 11, and Batian. Those variants are so important from different places. So I see Senator Sakaja, Senator Sakaja, these variants are in existence and very, very important. Let me end because I see my time is up. My red button is about to come up in congratulating the chairperson of this committee and wishing us well. This is a bill that was broadly supported the first time. We broadly support it again the second time. We hope it can move quickly into enactment as legislation. Thank you very much. I beg to support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chebeni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support this bill by Senator Ndwiga. I think this is a very important bill in this country. And Mr. Speaker, for a very long time, coffee farmers have been at a disadvantage. The sector has had issues to do with, dipping of prices, financial indiscipline, climate change, among other issues. But nothing has been done in this sector. And this has led to reduced productivity over time, massive financial losses in the sector, decline in the performance of the sector generally. Mr. Speaker, I say this is a timely bill because the sector needed a complete overhaul. And I think this bill has just come to do that. And it is going to give hope to coffee farmers in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, There are various provisions in this bill that I think are very key. And first of all, this bill seeks to separate the roles of the national government and the county governments. And when I look at clause 23, it gives the roles of the county government. And one of the main roles that it highlights is to maintain an up-to-date register of coffee farmers, nursery operators, among other people. And I think this is a neat way of doing things, Mr. Speaker, so that we know who is who and who does what in that sector. The other role of the county government is to offer extension services on coffee production, and I think this is very important. Extension services are very important to farmers because it allows them to, understand the general feeling of coffee growing, and these extension officers will help the farmers in solving problems that are to do with growing of coffee generally. Mr. Speaker, when you look at provision G, it talks about enhancing security in coffee growing areas. Not long ago, I think there was an issue somewhere in this country where coffee was stolen. So I think it's very important that we beef up security in coffee growing areas because this is a valuable crop, Mr. Speaker. When you look at H, it talks about monitoring and reporting of incidences of pests and disease outbreaks at the county level. I think that is also quite important so that we keep a record of that, Mr. Speaker. When you look at clause 37, it talks about establishment of a coffee research institute. Well, there's one in place, but I think it's very important because this will exclusively deal with coffee challenges and especially through research, Mr. Speaker. It will ensure quality production of coffee, and this will ensure that we achieve high grade of coffee in the country. Mr. Speaker, times are changing. We have technological changes, climate changes, and therefore a research institute that will deal with these issues is very important and key in this country. It will